Well, thanks very much, Dallas and panelists, for sharing and shedding a light on the work that ICOS is doing. We're going to take a quick photo, and then we're going to jump into our final session of IROC. We have a few keynote speakers after that. The paparazzi are busy today. All right, it is now my pleasure to introduce the moderator of our next session, and he's coming back to the IROC stage for the second time this year. I'm pleased to introduce Todd Corrigall. He's the Senior Vice President of Central Strategies. He's going to moderate the next panel titled Pathways to Prosperity, Indigenous-Led Tourism and Shared Success. So let's give Todd and his panelists a warm welcome to the stage.
Perfect. Thanks very much, Logan, for the introduction. This is an exciting panel. I think we've come through a day or a few days now of talking about what traditional natural resources look like, and now we get to shift a little bit into the natural resource of tourism and how that applies. So it's my pleasure to welcome to the stage Chief Linda Innes with Gitxaała Nations and Chair of the Board for Gitxaała Enterprises, Chief Chris Robert from Weewakam First Nation, and Ian Simpson, the CEO with Petroglyph.
Where are we?
Thank you, everybody, for joining us here late this morning for that. And thanks, everybody, on a near Friday afternoon for staying around for the final panel before we get into some of the keynotes. This is a really interesting conversation. And before we dive into it, I just want to provide some really high-level stats that I think help frame out the value of this as a discussion. So in BC, and all of these stats come from the Indigenous Tourism Board, $1.1 billion in annual economic impact in BC, $240 million in direct GDP in 2023, over 10,000 jobs available in the Indigenous tourism space in 2023, which we would assume would have climbed since then, 3 years on, and over 400 Indigenous-related tourism businesses currently operating in BC. So this is a huge, huge industry for BC. And with that, a huge, huge opportunity to diversify what the nations are doing, what their development corporations are doing, and how that comes to be. So after spending the last few days talking about our traditional resource sectors and moving on to this, Chief Linda, maybe you can tell us a little bit about sorry, you know what, let's actually step back. Why don't you give us a little brief update on what Gitxaała and Gecko have been up to in the tourism space?
Simikiget Tigan Mananak Takikiget Gabawalsik Linda Innes Duayu. I would like to first acknowledge that I am on the Coast Salish traditional territory, and I come from the Gitxaała traditional territory, which is on the north coast, very isolated and remote community off of the mainland of Prince Rupert and Haida Gwaii. So I've been the chief for 8 years now, and within our economic development arm, we have a Gitxaała Economic Development Corporation, and it began in 2022, I believe, and it started with community engagement surveys. What do you want? What does our nation want? And ever since then, the renewed vision was about creating generational wealth and self-sufficiency while protecting the territory, natural resources, and upholding our cultural laws, which is our Ayalkadalk and our Google Gansk in my language.
Thanks very much, Chief. Chief Chris, maybe you want to give us a quick update.
Yeah, thank you. What an honor to be here. And end of the day, guys, I admire your guys' resilience to stick through it. Olagala mayakla sa awitna guisa snunemo. Like Chief Innes, I've been in this role for 8 years. Tourism is one of those things that was kind of an obvious opportunity to Weewickum First Nation and Campbell River, but we haven't necessarily always gotten it right. We have a huge embarrassing failure of a cruise ship protocol that was built in the early 2000s that had, I think, 8 or 10 stops, and there it sits deteriorating $20 million of marine infrastructure. What are we going to do with it? We picked ourselves up. We were a little bit ahead of the curve, I think, in those days as far as our ambitions for cultural tourism. It's obvious because it is the opportunity for us to showcase to the world what is special and unique about us as a people. And I think that's the beautiful thing about British Columbia when we talk about authentic Indigenous cultural tourism experiences. And yeah, we're moving ahead with a massive waterfront development initiative, building a 116-room hotel. Things are getting close to the final investment decision, and we own and operate a private marina, one of the largest ones on the BC coast. It's one of our crown jewels as far as that business and what it creates for our community. But we did a lot of engagement during that cruise ship era of what we wanted to showcase, and the ships came, and they never came again. And so our people have been let down because they really wanted to showcase the pride of our culture and our language and our identity to the world of who we are. And I applaud groups like the Hamalko First Nation that lives in Likoto territory, that operates a grizzly bear viewing experience in their in Butte Inlet, and it's really grown and an immense success. And we've watched it help that nation lift up their cultural recognition and revitalization, and it's been a real inspiration. I'll leave it there for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief Chris. Ian, just quickly before we jump over to you for an introduction, Slido is available, so if you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in there, and we will try to get to them. And Chief Chris, there's going to be a callback on Dallas's comment about bear viewing as a tourism strategy, so we haven't forgotten about that, Dallas. Ian, maybe you can give us a quick overview.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ian Simpson. My traditional name is Yockington. I am a proud member of the Snuneymuxw Nation, and I have the great privilege of serving as the Chief Executive Officer of Petroglyph Development Group. Our tourism portfolio is incredibly important to us, and it, going back to the late '90s, Snuneymuxw entered into an agreement to operate Seisetchin or Newcastle Island, which is a little marine park just a 10-minute boat ride away from the harbor here in Nanaimo. And since then, and well before that, it's been a very important place to Snuneymuxw, and it holds a special place in my heart because, like many young men and women from Snuneymuxw, it was my first job at 13 was cleaning toilets and changing garbages and doing that kind of fun stuff, and it continues to be the first job of many of our people in a very beautiful and special place. Fast forward to about 4 years ago, we, in partnership with a group out of the U.S., we built the Courtyard by Marriott Hotel right next door to the conference center here, and worked very closely with some incredible artists from Snuneymuxw that you might know from Ilalem Good House of Design, the late Willie and Joel Good, whose art tells the story of the woolly dog that comes from this place in an incredibly beautiful way. So if you're staying at that hotel for this conference, thank you. If you're not, I'll just assume it was sold out. That's why you had to go to the coast. And yeah, from there, if you might have be aware that we've going to become owners of the River Rock Casino and Resort in just over a week's time officially, and so that brings about 600, almost 600 hotel rooms into our portfolio of our hospitality portfolio in conjunction with our gaming stuff, which I haven't counted our chickens yet, but if we're not the biggest Indigenous-owned hospitality company in Canada, we're one of them with that many rooms in our portfolio. So it's a very, very important sector for us, and will continue to be for many years.
Awesome. That's a great introduction to a wide portfolio. I had a chance to go through your website, and it's a pretty impressive list of companies you've got growing there. So congratulations. Chief Chris, maybe we'll flip back to you for the first question here, which is how does a tourism-related strategy align to your goals and focus on the available resources that are within your territory or within the area that you're building these businesses?
Thank you for that. We're fortunate, as far as where our territory is located, and to have a diversification in our economic base. A lot of if you go back to the history of successful intergenerational wealth and economic development, a lot of the first mover projects were land development, and we developed a commercial shopping center in the early 1990s, and that wealth stream into our community has been transformational. And we also have a participation in the traditional resource sectors. Unfortunately, our mine is in care and maintenance at the moment, and forestry is struggling. So the tourism sector is something that naturally, about the natural beauty we have on coastal British Columbia, with the wildlife viewing of grizzly bears, of whales and so things, so it really lends naturally. But I want to come back to the piece that it is we are very proud of our culture and our language, and that is our resilience is shown. You come to Discovery Harbour Shopping Centre, and I've had compliments from other nations on the island say, I love coming to your centre because you're at a First Nations owned land. You see our crests represented, and you see our totem poles out there, and that's more than art. That is telling the story of our connection to that place. And back to that point about being ahead of our time, we had a professional theatrical performance. The Gildas Box of Treasures. Gildas is in our Kwakwala language as our box that our chiefs hold with all their treasures, their dances, regalia, etc. It's just literal and metaphorical. Anyhow, it was like professional lighting like these, which are really hot and on me at the moment, but it never panned out. We had permission from our chiefs to showcase certain dances that were common among our people, and our youth were very excited to be able to show to the world and explain what those dances mean and what it means to them as individuals. To me, it's the most exciting piece about cultural tourism. I just want to you didn't ask this, but I don't know if I'll get a chance. When I worked with Namakoa's council years ago, regional economic strategy, what are we going to do, what should we work together on, and tourism was one of those obvious ones again, because we didn't want to compete among each other over the small piece of the Indigenous tourism pie, which is very big, thanks for the statistics you quoted, but we wanted to be the operators. We wanted to be the resort-based viewing grizzly bear lodges. We wanted to be the adventure heli-skiing operators. We want to be the hotels and hospitality where the actual income and profit is made, not just a bit of a trinket and sideshow of, we have this cultural thing we want to share with you. So we want it all, and I'm really pleased and humbled to be with the likes of the folks up here for the investments you made in hospitality. Gela Custa.
Thank you very much. Chief Linda, how do you envision Gitxaała and Gecko's tourism structure looping in? And of course, before I throw it over to you, when this panel was envisioned, before I could even reach out to you, you were at an announcement of the reopening of Chances in Prince Rupert that you had just acquired as well. So the timing was right.
I just want to say before I answer that question is that while I was there when we were making that announcement about the grand reopening of our purchase of the Chances Convention Center and the casino next to our iconic Crest Hotel that we own, I had been talking about how proud I am of our development corporation, and I have a really great team that I work with, and I don't know how many of you in the room are Indigenous relations advisors, but I'm always proud that I have a director of Caucasian relations advisor, and I just had to share that. I think that's really important. And I asked him that question, how come we always see Indigenous relations advisors? Where are the Caucasian relations advisors? I was like, you're the first one. But I think when you look at, for Gitxaała, we're Gitlamon, people of the saltwater, and so Prince Rupert is actually a municipality, but that's where the brunt of our business are the assets that we own, like the Crest Hotel, the Convention Center, Rona, the Chatham House and the museum. And the opportunities are just immense there, you know, like, I think that we're looking at, you know, one of the things is that equity ownership, the intergenerational wealth, and then the next, you know, like the opportunities that we're looking at is how do we work on building the capacity of our nation members to be the largest Indigenous employer within the city of Prince Rupert, because we are one of the biggest taxpayers within the city of Prince Rupert.
Yeah, that's such a great point, recognizing that a First Nation is also the largest taxpayer within a colonial traditional municipality. I think it's a valuable point, particularly as some of the discussions publicly become skewed about that situation. Ian, how do you know, you're a development corporation, there's 2 First Nations on the stage with you, how do you sort of balance the direction of the nation and what they're looking for with the needs of the development corporation?
I think you know, I have the, you know, the benefit of you know, having our ECDev group and you know, the nation always, you know, always walking in lockstep. That's you know, we exist to as an economic development group to serve Snuneymuxw, and you know, part of my job is to ensure that, you know, that I'm always pointed and PDG is always pointed in the direction that Snuneymuxw wants us to go. You know, I think in our territory here, in you know, in the city of Nanaimo, Nanaimo is often, you know, overlooked as a destination. So, you know, we certainly see that as an opportunity to change that and start, you know, delivering the kind of tourism-related products that are going to draw people into Nanaimo and not just have them pass by as they're going to Tofino or, you know, other parts of the island. So that's the kind of things that you know, that we're working on at the, you know, at the direction of the leadership at our nation, and you know, we're, you know, very proud people at Snuneymuxw, and we, you know, we're looking forward to those few further opportunities to share, you know, our culture and our history, like you can see at our Marriott Hotel, and the story that's kind of interwoven into the interior design at the property there.
That's fantastic. Thanks very much. The Tofino thing is such an interesting story because I before I moved to Prince George in 2010, spent a lot of time in Vancouver, and my experiences with Nanaimo were driving off the ferry, stopping at the grocery store, and going to Tofino. And this was probably the first time I'd spent any significant amount of time in Nanaimo, in the waterfront, going around to some of the local businesses. And it really is an impressive environment where you do see a lot of that cultural integration here, where you don't necessarily see that in some other communities across BC. So kudos to you for that. There's a question on Slido asking about fastest growing sectors of tourism, and we did have a question here about what the future looked like, what the growth opportunities were coming from your strategy. So Ian, I'm going to look at you first. What does a growth strategy look like for you, and what have you identified as sort of the fastest growing segments?
I don't know if I could answer that with too much accuracy. You know, I do know, like I mentioned, you know, we'd be at 600 hotel rooms here in our portfolio, and you know, we certainly see the opportunity to continue to grow our presence in you know, in the hospitality space. I imagine, you know, over the next 5 years, we'll be adding at least another 500 hotel rooms to that, not just in Nanaimo, but in some of the other markets that we're operating in, and like in the Lower Mainland and South Island here. So that's certainly going to be our focus is expansion of our hotel portfolio.
Excellent. Chief Linda, what does growth look like, and what are your highest segments right now?
Right now, I think for Gitxaała Economic Development Corporation, we have quite a diversified portfolio of businesses. We own several businesses. We have several partnerships, equity partnerships within major projects such as LNG and more to come. But the beauty of it is we're such an isolated and remote community that, like the importance of the relationships with municipalities, provincial, federal government, and our neighboring nations. But right now, within the tourism piece, we are building our response to the cruise ship industry. And as such, like for our nation, we're involved in partnerships with the communication field and with the marine industry, marine ferry transportation. Like all of that is all combined together is, I think, pretty much is responsive to the growing cruise ship industry within the region. But not only that, the LNG and other major projects, I think 40% of the major projects are actually happening in the north. So we're there, we're on the ground, and we have the Crest Hotel, like I said, and we're growing that, and hopefully one day we'll see the IROC convention up in Prince Rupert. Thank you.
Thank you. I was curious what Dallas's reaction was going to be to that, but it seems positive. So, where's Logan? IROC 2027, Prince Rupert. We'll just work on an airport to facilitate that. Chief Chris, same question to you. Excuse me. So, what are the growth sectors? But I think Chief Linda had sort of alluded to something with the community benefit agreements that circle traditional resource-based projects. Is there a way that those projects can help integrate further tourism opportunities through the work that they're doing, and is there a parallel growth that can come from that?
Yeah, I'm sure there is. I don't know if I have a smart answer to that, but the interface, what I'm thinking when I look at some of these Slido questions around themes, the traditional resource sector, and the interface that plays it's balance. It's balance of how we utilize and manage our territory, and that's always been a fundamental principle to us as Indigenous people. And things have really been out of balance. And there's a huge education curve. The visitor experience provides a platform to educate people, our own people. Some of our hereditary chiefs that you don't get to go out in the territory very much. You live in the urban center of Campbell River, and gas is expensive, and boats aren't cheap, and commercial fishing is a small group, where we're not in touch with our territory and the mainland inlets much, and they go, wow, I haven't been out here in so many years, and they see what they, on its face, looks a very impact, they use the words maybe devastating, as far as clear cuts. And it provides the opportunity to say, well, do you know that this is actually in the Great Bear Rainforest? And check out this technology where I bring out an iPad and pull up a layer of all this red crosshatch area. Do you know what that is? That's a landscape reserve. That is an area that is protected for ecological diversity, and that is work that my good friend Dallas likes to talk about, many people in this room, that took 15 or 20 years of the Central Coast, and it's like, oh, okay. So we're bringing balance back into the equation, and I think that's one of the exciting things as far as what tourism offers as an educational platform. But it also does cause us to be more cognizant of our own harvest plans and visual quality objectives in an area where we want to invest and enhance grizzly bear viewing opportunities. Probably not the best place to plan our next heli logging project, or at least we time it differently and have things a little more out of sight, out of mind. I would be remiss if I didn't mention about our acquisition of Campbell River whale watching and listening to Bill Lomax in the keynote last night, as far as we didn't have the capacity to get that started up. And me personally, I always thought it would have been an entrepreneurial opportunity, but no one in our community seized it, or for whatever reason it didn't happen. And we couldn't wait any longer, so we jumped in with 2 feet and bought the largest operator in Campbell River with a structured purchase where we'll own it outright in the next 2 years. And so that is where there's a lot of excitement. We're kind of betting big on tourism to help kind of smooth out and have a very diversified income stream, because our forest licenses isn't really the best time to go and harvest those right now. So we got to have a balance.
Yeah, that's a great narrative to place on it too, because there is so much discussion around what are the projects that can move forward, what's focused on the lands and the waters that have sustained the nations and the communities for years and years and years, and how do you sort of work around that, which leads to it was a perfect segue for the question of how do you balance the cultural aspects of your hereditary chiefs, of your councils, of your communities, and then Ian, in your position, I would assume board of directors who are focused on those initiatives as well. But how do you balance all of that out to ensure that you're focused on the growth, you're focused on the opportunities, and of course you're focused on revenue generation that's going to sustain your communities into the future? And maybe Chief Chris, we'll start with you.
Okay, thank you for that. Yeah, it's you have to invest the time. You have to approach it with respect for the rights holders. The intellectual property is the wrong word, but maybe the closest to it, of our chiefs and our matriarchs and the people that hold that knowledge, and get their permission to share it. You have to do that. We've done that, and we're, and that gives us the platform and the confidence to share what we can share and what we cannot. But there's really an openness, and I've been reminded that it was actually through tourism, through, we talk about impacts of colonization, potlatching ban for us on the coast, and what that did to us. Tourism was the very first beginnings of the opportunity for us to come out and show off and to share who we are with visitors, and that was local people, right? So it's a very important step. You have to do it properly. You can get it wrong, and our partners, because we're in a transition of our full ownership, are very aware and very cautious, and to seek permission at every step. And the last thing I'll kind of say is where we're at is that the realness. I've had my knowledge of this is evolved, where it's not just around what songs, dances, place names, what names in language, what does this, the Mahinu, or the killer whale, mean to us in a spiritual way. That's all very important things to share. But when it's our people that are from the land, that are the one giving a guided experience in its place, that's your authentic Indigenous experience. It doesn't have to add all this stuff. You don't have to overdo it and try too hard. It's building that capacity from our youth that can share that, and the pride that they have, it just oozes out, and people love it, and it's genuine.
Yeah, thank you. Chief Linda. How do you balance the wants and needs of hereditary community elected leadership while staying focused on the important task of making it revenue positive for the future?
For myself, within my oath of office under the Indian Act as a chief counselor, part of my oath is to uphold we call our Yawkadaukan, our Google Gans, which is our traditional laws, our oral history, and the inheritance for generations to come. So every decision we make, we have to be thinking about the generations to follow. And within myself as the council, chief counselor, and my council, we have a very good, healthy working relationship with what we have. Our hereditary system has always had its own governance structure, and they're evolving. We're always evolving. We're always changing. When it comes to treaty issues, treaty rights. We have a working committee there. We have our hereditary advisory committee when it comes to our development corporation. And, at the end of the day, if there's a major project and there's an impact benefit agreement to be made, decision to be made, it is not the council that signs and agrees first. We don't sign anything until our hereditary chiefs and matriarchs are satisfied that, first of all, the environment's going to be protected, and that when the project is done, that part of it is and making sure that we have equity ownership in those major projects too. But our chiefs have mainly been on board as long as they're involved and informed. So that relationship is so important and cannot be underestimated when you want to come to Gitxaała.
Perfect. Ian, we get to close out with your thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's fortunately one of the easier and more meaningful parts of my job is that I think just the leadership that we have in place at Snuneymuxw kind of embody Snuneymuxw culture and values. Or you would have seen earlier our president Ireland Joseph, who lives and breathes Snuneymuxw big house culture alongside our chief Wise, who I'm able to lean on day to day for those types of decisions, and every major decision that we make as a corporate, as a group of companies, goes through our elders advisory and matriarchs advisory tables, and so in my view, and I think this holds true, every decision we make really does align with the Snuneymuxw culture and values. That's what we strive for at PDG. We've also established our Snuneymuxw Development Committee, which is comprised of elders and knowledge keepers and Snuneymuxw engineers and Snuneymuxw lawyers, and with the intention of breathing Snuneymuxw culture and values into the design and planning and implement in the actual construction of all of our development projects. So yeah, that's a few of the things that how we approach that.
Fantastic. Well, what my takeaway from this is clearly that the future of Indigenous tourism, Indigenous-led tourism, and Indigenous opportunities through tourism is plentiful, and there's a lot out there, and I would encourage everybody to pay attention when you're booking your travel, booking your opportunities, that you're looking out for tourism opportunities that help support these Indigenous-led businesses. Thank you very much to the panelists for joining us.